but at this point, and to the best of my knowledge, Soccer is yet to lose an archer in this entire matchup, whereas the human player, I believe, has lost 2 to 3 footmen. This isn't good for Sky. Normally, it's not bad. It doesn't usually hurt him, but in this game, whenever we start to reach middle to late tier 2, it is going to hurt him. And the thing about this is, and what I think makes elf players so effective whenever they learn a really powerful strategy, is that the elf race is pretty much the only race that can be truly effective and powerful at all 3 tiers of the game, right? At tier 1, elf players have hunts, they can get archers, they can get mercs, they can creep fast. There are a lot of things that an elf player can do, especially with like a warden or a tavern hero, that gives the elf player control in the early game. Then whenever you reach tier 2 with the addition of dryads, elves get the same type of effect. They get the map control that they need to really have control of where the game goes. And then by tier 3, you've got bears, they heal each other, you've got staves now on all of your heroes. It becomes very, very powerful for elves to stay in games. And then if you look at tier 3 in terms of hero levels, whenever you're looking at Demon Hunter level 6 and certain things like that, elves are going to get extremely powerful. Now, one thing I want you to look at here is that Soccer has now added 2 hunts to his army. These hunts are going to be used for late game, but their other effect right now is that since he's sat at tier 1 longer in the game, he now needs frontline units, because as you can see, Sky has now added Defend to his army. Well, with this Mud Golem putting slow on footmen, and also with the hunts in this army, units are going to die for Sky, even though he's got Defend, and these archers and other mercenary units aren't quite as effective as they otherwise would have been for Soccer. Now, Soccer gets level 3. He's going to continue his harass on the Archmage. And this is something I want you to look at. I want you to notice that this Archmage right now is still just level 2. What this strategy has done so far is by delaying the tech, by getting a few extra units in a sense, right? By picking up the hunts right here, and also the extra AOW in case he took extra pressure from Sky. Soccer has now countered the human standard counter on this map. Typically on Echo Wilds, once a human sets up his expo, he's going to try to harass the counter expo for as long as he can to delay it, so that he as a human player can break past 50 food before the elf can, make a tier 2 push, and end the game. And I mean, Priest did an audio commentary on this very setup, and I've talked about it before, I've referenced it, and I'm sure he would be more than happy to point it out if any of you wanted to talk to him. I mean, if a human player can really harass the counter expo of an elf, it's going to work out for him. And then here's another thing to look at. The human player here has picked up a Naga for sake of trying to get a little bit of map control back from the elf, but since the Soccer had an awareness of what the human player was doing, he saw this unit coming and was able to counter it and kill it. And if you look up at the top of the map, his Ancient of War is already uprooted to go for this AOW creep at the mercenary camp. That tells us that what he wanted to do was creep now, but it tells us even more that what's more important than creeping for him in this strategy is keeping the human player from being able to creep. And we're going to see this come up here as we get closer and closer to the end of this replay, and we're actually getting much closer to the application of this strategy than you may realize. If you look down at the bottom right part of the map, Soccer's Expo is now up. He's building a shop that he's going to be using soon, and he's now got 2 Ancients of Lore that have got Dryads coming out. And he's also got the Abolish Poison or Dispel or whatever the hell upgrade it is called nowadays. So far, what I want you to note is that the things that can really mess up the strategy are the same types of things that can hurt an elf player in general on this map. If you can't get your counter expo up, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. But the strategy sets you up to be able to really push up that counter expo with the Warden's Shadow Strike and also the application of mercenary units early on. But the requirement in terms of you as a player is that you have to have the ability to really preserve units to keep them from dying. If it's 1 archer against 2 footmen, instead of putting 20 damage on the damn footman, run the archer away. Don't take the damage unless you need to. Now, if you look over at Soccer, again, he's setting up. He's not looking to make a push on this base. What he's doing is he's looking at how many towers the human player has, and he's looking for the human. And when he finds the human, he's going to jack him. And you're going to see here, actually, this is a really neat trick that I love to see. If you watch this Warden, he's going to put a Shadow Strike. This is a rank 2 Shadow Strike on a Priest. The Priest is now going to die simply from that damage, and you're actually going to see Sky deny it. That's a good thing to know. If you've got Shadow Strike rank 2 and you want to pick off a unit, put it on one of the Priests, it's going to die. But anyways, what's happened here is Soccer's gotten a chance to look at this expo. He sees that there are only 3 towers, and so he knows that this base is still weak to the strategy that he wants to do. And this is important. You need to identify when your strategy can still work and when it's no longer going to be able to work. And seeing that a human player isn't massing towers is a good sign that it's going to work in this case for the strategy. Now, if you look at Soccer right now, he's at 50 food. He's basically lost no units this whole game, and he's only got 2 Dryads. Now, Moonwell just completed that put him to 70 food, and instantly he now is up to 64 food. 14 of that food is in units training right now. He does not have that army right now. 14 food is coming over to him, but that's what I want you to note. He's now at 64 of 70. If we look over at Pepsi's perspective, Sky's perspective, he's at 49 food. So in just a few seconds, there's going to be a very big differential between the 2 army sizes, and that is exactly what Soccer's looking to capitalize on this game. By working footmen away from the human player has lost resources periodically throughout the game and has had to retrain units. Whereas Soccer, by not losing units, has continued to build up an army. He sat at 50 food until he had the resources set and the Moonwells built, and then he broke 50. That is one of the big parts that make the strategy work. The next thing that's going to make the strategy work is the very early timing of this push. If you look over at Sky's army right now, he's got a mortar in his base, and he's going to start training a mortar in his workshop up north. But to know to do this, if you look at his helicopter right now, Sky's helicopter just south of Soccer's army, it just saw the army, and now he starts building the mortar up at his workshop. So Sky right now is starting to break 50 because he knows he needs to catch up and be ready for this push. The catch is, this addition of glaive launchers, whenever Soccer wanted to break 50, allowed him to get up to 80 much faster than usual. I mean, if you look at him, he's sitting at 80 food. But not only that, he's building an Ancient Protector to get ready to fend. He's getting an Ancient of Wonders, or an Ancient of Store, if you will, over at this push so that he can get more mana and more items on his Warden. And now he's just camping these launchers and working down these peasants. And so here it is. Now that Sky needs to break 50 and start getting more resources developed, he's having to, and get an army developed, he's now having to waste resources on building new peasants, on repairing. So he's no longer using his resources the way that he wants to. And in a sense, this is, in a way, more powerful than the standard human push on an elf base, where the elf doesn't really have to repair. The elf just needs to train more units and not suck. So anyways, we're going to see here how this gets so effective, and here's actually a nice trick. If you look at Soccer, he's going to run up. He's going to do his fan of knives before he abolishes with his Dryads. Now that the elementals have lower hit points, he then goes through to abolish each one once and gets them killed. And the other effect of this, by saving mana on his Dryads, is that he's able to continue abolishing throughout this fight whenever new water elementals are set to come up. And also, simply by saving that mana, it just makes it where he's safer for a later game fight. And what's just utterly disturbing right here is this Warden is now level 5. He's got 2 pendants of energy. While you continue to watch this fight on your own, there's not much micro to actually look at this very moment. It's just focus units and don't suck. These 2 pendants of energy, if you don't manage to get 2 of those and you still want to use a strategy like this, that workshop, or the marketplace, excuse me, up at the very northern part of the map sells those. I was in a game yesterday and I ended up in the length of this game on Echo Isles, my